Look at a map of Egypt and it looks massive. From the sun-drenched coasts of the Mediterranean to the scorched borders of Sudan, from the Red Sea to the vast emptiness of the western desert, Egypt stretches wide like a kingdom carved into stone. On paper, it's one of the largest countries in Africa, but that map is lying to you. Because the truth of Egypt is not found in its borders, it's found in a single line. A ribbon of green, barely visible from space, clinging to the Nile River. That silver, it's where 90% of Egyptians live, on just 3% of the country's land. Everything, the cities, the farms, the roads, the people, happens there. And the rest is a vast ocean of sand, dry and empty, as lifeless as the surface of the moon. But Egypt's challenge isn't just that it's crowded, it's that it's running out of time, out of space, out of water. And now, one of the oldest civilizations on Earth must decide, can it keep living on this thread of green? Or must it reinvent its future far from the river that gave it life? This is the story of the line that shaped a country, and what happens when that line begins to break. The Nile is the reason Egypt exists. It flows over 6,600 kilometers, winding from the heart of East Africa to the Mediterranean Sea, making it the longest river in the world. And in Egypt, it becomes more than just a river. It becomes civilization itself. Ancient Egyptians didn't just choose to settle near the Nile. They had no alternative. The river was life. It flooded with near-perfect predictability, leaving behind layers of rich, fertile silt ideal for growing crops like barley, wheat, flax, and papyrus. This dependable rhythm allowed ancient Egypt to develop one of the world's earliest agricultural economies and one of the earliest centralized governments to control it. But that gift came with a boundary. Just a few hundred meters beyond the Nile's floodplain, the land transforms. Fertile earth gives way to sterile land. The transition is sharp, almost jarring. The Nile Valley is essentially a trench of green, carved through the desert, hemmed in on all sides by hostile terrain. This has confined Egyptians for thousands of years. The ancient capital of Thebes, the great necropolis of Giza, the fertile delta of the north, all exist within this narrow green artery. Even today, this band remains the heart of the country. The contrast is visible from orbit. Satellite images reveal a thin line of green twisting like a vine through an ocean of brown. It's as if someone painted life into the desert with a single brushstroke and stopped. But this isn't just a relic of the past. It's Egypt today. More than 100 million people live along the Nile and in its delta. The rest of the country, over 1 million square kilometers, is nearly empty. The desert isn't just empty space. It's a boundary, a wall that has boxed Egypt in, politically, economically, and demographically for over 5 millennia. And nowhere is that pressure more visible than in Cairo. The capital of Egypt, Cairo is a megacity bursting at the seams. With over 22 million residents, it ranks among the top 10 largest cities in the world. But Cairo wasn't built to handle this kind of weight. Its infrastructure dates back centuries, and its layout, shaped by dynasties, colonial rule, and modern sprawl, is chaotic at best. The city is a maze of overpopulated neighborhoods, tangled roads, and dense, informal housing known as ashwayat, settlements often constructed without permits or access to utilities. More than 60% of Cairns live in these areas. Public transport strains under pressure. Traffic gridlocks are routine. Air pollution often reaches hazardous levels. And yet, Cairo keeps growing. Rural Egyptians move to the city in search of opportunity. Young people stay because there are no alternatives. The result? Urban compression without direction. Satellite cities like 6th of October, New Cairo, and Al-Sharuk were built into the desert to relieve pressure. But they've only absorbed a fraction of Cairo's growth. Why? Jobs, schools, hospitals, and social life remain centered in the old city. So residents endure long commutes, straining roads and lives alike. What's more, all these desert suburbs still rely on the same water, power, and food systems connected to, you guessed it, the Nile. So in reality, they're not escaping the ribbon, they're just stretching it. And if you're into stories like this, where a single river shapes not just a country's land, but its entire destiny, you're in the right place. This is Borderline History. And if you want to see where the next map takes us, consider subscribing and hitting that like button. It helps these stories reach more curious minds around the world. Because what's happening in Cairo isn't just a city problem, it's a national warning sign, and the cracks are already spreading. To understand Egypt's future, we need to understand its emptiness. 97% of Egypt's landmass is classified as desert. And this isn't the type of desert you can easily settle. It's some of the most extreme terrain on Earth. The Western Desert, which makes up about 2/3 of Egypt, is an expanse of barren plateaus, wind-carved rock formations, and salt flats. Rainfall is almost non-existent. Some regions haven't seen significant rain in decades. Temperatures regularly exceed 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and sandstorms sweep through entire regions without warning. The Eastern Desert, located between the Nile and the Red Sea, is more mountainous but just as inhospitable. Steep cliffs, narrow wadis, and dangerous terrain make development difficult, expensive, and slow. The region holds mineral wealth, yes, but not enough water or arable land to support large-scale habitation. Despite these challenges, Egypt has repeatedly tried to tame the desert. The Toshka project, launched in the 1990s, was supposed to create a second Nile Valley by diverting water from Lake Nasser into the Western Desert. It cost billions and made headlines, but decades later, large portions of it remain underdeveloped or abandoned. Why? Because building in the desert isn't just about roads and houses. It's about creating a whole new ecosystem. You need water infrastructure, power grids, hospitals, schools, economic opportunities, and a reason for people to come and stay. Even the much-hyped new administrative capital, currently under construction east of Cairo, is facing similar hurdles. Though impressive on paper, with its glass towers, green boulevards, and tech ambitions, questions remain. Will it attract enough residents? Will the services match the promises? Will it solve Cairo's problems or simply duplicate them? So far, the desert remains mostly silent, and the cities remain mostly crowded. As Egypt looks to escape its old geography, a new threat emerges. The Nile itself may no longer be reliable. Over 90% of Egypt's fresh water comes from the Nile. But the river doesn't belong solely to Egypt. It begins thousands of kilometers away, in Ethiopia and Uganda, and flows through 11 countries before reaching Egyptian soil. This shared ownership has always created tension, but in recent years, it has escalated into crisis. In 2011, Ethiopia began constructing the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD, on the Blue Nile. The dam promises to double Ethiopia's electricity generation and power its development, but for Egypt, it represents a terrifying possibility: reduced river flow. The Blue Nile provides nearly 85% of Egypt's Nile water. If Ethiopia fills the dam too quickly or regulates flow through droughts, Egypt's agriculture, water supply, and electricity generation could all suffer. Talks have repeatedly stalled. Ethiopia asserts its sovereign right to develop. Meanwhile, climate change adds another layer of urgency. The Nile Delta, where over 40% of Egypt's population lives, is slowly sinking. Rising sea levels push saltwater into freshwater aquifers, degrade farmland, and threaten entire coastal towns. Studies suggest that by 2100, parts of the delta, including cities like Rosetta and Damietta, could be partially submerged if no action is taken, and the breadbasket of Egypt could become a dead zone. So while Egypt looks outward to expand, the very land it relies on, its oldest, richest soil, is under siege from above and below. Egypt now faces a monumental decision: continue to cling to the river or redraw the map. The new administrative capital, solar farms in the Benban complex, new agricultural zones in Wadi El Natron, even desert university campuses, all point to a country trying to leap beyond its historical constraints. But ambition must be met with realism. These new zones need more than construction. They need culture, community, jobs, schools, safety, a sense of permanence. The truth is, no amount of concrete can replace the identity tied to the Nile. For Egyptians, the river is more than a resource. It's memory, it's myth, it's mother. That emotional bond cannot be undone by high-speed trains or skyscrapers alone, but it can be expanded. If Egypt succeeds in building sustainable, water-smart cities in the desert, it won't just solve a logistical crisis, it will rewrite the narrative of its civilization. It will prove that even a country boxed in by geography can carve a new path, not just with rivers, but with resolve. From the sky, Egypt looks like a green thread sewn into a tan sheet. That thread has carried a civilization for 5,000 years, but it's fraying. The desert is still there, waiting. The water is still flowing, but not guaranteed. The cities are swelling. The future is uncertain. So what happens now? Let me know in the comments. If you were tasked with rebuilding Egypt from scratch, would you follow the Nile again or try something new? And if you love stories where borders and rivers shape not just land, but identity, subscribe. Because here on Borderline History, we follow the lines the world was built on, and where they might lead next. Thanks for watching.